it's still morning. Good morning. My name is Vernon Hal. I'm the Senior Business Officer for Oakland Unified School District. So I kind of manage all the money, or make sure that we try to allocate the money in the best needs of our students, and work with all of you and my colleagues to see if we can, get the money out to be most efficient with the use of those resources in support of our students and our families. So just by a way of kind of background, I am a product of Oakland Unified School District. I went to Severny Park, I went to Howard, I went to King Estates when it was a junior high. Remember that? Back in those days, we went to elementary with the 6th grade. You had 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then I went to Skyline. Sorry, Castlemont folks, but you know what? At King, I had a lot of friends who went to Castlemont. So, and so my mom was a teacher in the district for 27 years. She taught math in middle school. Maybe that's had something to do with me working with numbers. I don't know. And currently, I have a son who's in the 11th grade at Tech. I live in Oakland, grew up in Oakland. Both my brothers went to the schools here. My mom still lives in Oakland, so I'm here. I'm here for the long haul. I also used to teach coach Pop Warner football for a number of years. And so working with the young kids in Oakland, the young boys, that was very, what do I want to say? That was very fulfilling for me, just to watch the kids grow up. But I do know the work we do and what we have to do is very important, because as the kids grow up, I was able to see them do some good things in their lives and not so good things in their lives. There's one kid I used to coach. He's over at Oregon State right now, and he's doing well. Ryan Murphy, he actually scored a touchdown, I think, a couple weeks ago against USC, ran a touchdown back for a kickoff. But also, I got a couple kids who, I'd say about 3 or 4 weeks ago, not too far from here, a kid got shot and killed in the car. There's another kid we used to coach. I think he's in prison for a triple homicide. So I know what we do is very important. And what we're here for is very important, because we know we don't do it well, you get those kind of, those results that are not too favorable. And so also what I try to do, and I've been doing, is work with some students into high schools, go to the schools and try to find out which kids are really struggling, and try to see seniors, and see what I can do to make sure they get over the hump. By that I mean graduate. So the last couple of years I've worked with a kid or two where I had a couple kids come to my house, use my Wi-Fi, use my system so they can actually do the senior paper so they can actually walk the stage. I gave them a couple $100 for that. I said, you do this, I'll give you a couple $100. I did the same thing last year. One kid, we text each other earlier this week. He just took midterms at Alameda College. And so, it's not, you might see a person like me behind the desk working with numbers, but that's not who I am. That's never been who I am. And so a lot of folks who work with the schools, they're really about the kids, okay? And so just letting everybody know that that's kind of my lens as far as when I do this work. And so today's agenda, what we're going to try to do, this is like Budget 101 for Oakland Unified. What drives our budget? Basically the LCAP plan, which we talked about earlier today, and the strategic plan. How much money do we get? So when you talk about our whole budget, it's approximately a little over $500 million annually. What type of resources do we have? Restricted and unrestricted, and we'll talk about what the differences are. And also, where do we spend our money? At school sites, we got support for schools. You've heard some of that. We'll talk about a little bit more about that. Our infrastructure. And then finally, how do we spend it? Is it in people? Is it in stuff? And what percentages and so forth. So we got salaries and benefits, books and supplies. Okay, so what drives our budget? We talked about it before, and that's kind of why we're here. LCAP. Those decisions of these particular documents drives the plan that we have for spending dollars. So how much money goes into our schools? I agree with that. So California doesn't do a really good job of funding education. It's probably out of the 50 states, it's somewhere in the high 40s. I think that's somewhere in the high 40s, right? And so we need to do better. I know with LCFF, we talk about more dollars, but that's more dollars to get us basically to 07, 08 levels. So it's seriously underfunded, but you know, so we need people on all accounts to work with the state to give us more money and then work with the money we get to make sure we spend it efficiently. So our revenues for this year is about a little over 551, almost $552 million. So when we talked about the types of resources, we have unrestricted dollars. And what is that? That's money we can spend for any educational purpose we desire, we see fit. So it's not restricted. What informs this spending is the LCAP like we talked about. And examples of those kinds of resources that are unrestricted will be LCFF dollars, lottery funds, lease income, interest income. So there's no restriction as to what we spend the money on for any educational purpose. Then we have restricted dollars. Those are dollars that have to be spent on a particular educational purpose. Basically, whoever gives us those money, they tell us what you can spend it on, how you spend it. So it's not the district that determines that, it's the giver of the resources. You know, if I like say, you know, tell your son, boy, here's a couple dollars, go down there and give me, you know, a pack of gum. That's restricted. Your son can't buy anything. It's restricted to a pack of gum, right? That's what Mama said, right? So, like I said, it's informed by the folks who give us the money. And examples would be things like special ed, nutritional services, private donations, and money like federal funds like Title I that go into school budgets. So how much of each? So you can see here, of the approximately $552 million, we have about 60% of it is unrestricted and about 40% being restricted. So of the total, we have more than half of it is for our discretion. So when we get into the restricted side, you know, what makes up the restricted resources? Well, these are particular funds we talk about in terms of the monies. And so for the general fund, it's about $95 million of restricted resources. And that's the Title I. That's the after-school program dollars. That's the special ed dollars. That's, if you've heard us talk about Bechtel resources and Kaiser, those are all those kind of resources that are in the general fund that are restricted. And this part here, those bond repayments. So remember, the voters approved Measure J and some previous measures as far as us getting construction money so we can build up and make our schools beautiful. Well, what happens is we have to repay that. So the voters, what they've done is said, we allow you to tax us so you can take the resource, our tax dollars, and pay back those bonds. So that's what that $71 million is for the most part. And those dollars, they really don't come to us. They go to the county treasurer, collects the money, and then pay the bills. But they tell us, they give us like a remittance to say, we collected this much and we paid that much, so put that on your books. So it doesn't even come through our books or our coffers. And then you have the other things like self-insurance, cafeteria, early childhood, facility funds, and adult ed. So those are all the other restricted resources, about $223 million. And so on the unrestricted side, the biggest portion of that is the LCFF. So historically, and this is the second year for LCFF, we used to have this thing called revenue limits and all these tier 3, flex resources for those of you guys who've been following this for a while. They bundled it all up and they called it local control funding formula. It's about 89% of our unrestricted dollars. Then we have other state monies like, lottery, and there's some other miscellaneous state resources. Then we have the parcel tax, Measure G. And then we have another smaller portion. So that's, you can see, when we talk about our unrestricted of 328 million, the bulk of it is the LCFF piece. And so with the LCFF, we get the money based on our students going to school, actually not being in school, but in seats, attendance. And so there's base, there's supplemental, and there's concentration dollars. And so you can see here where the supplement and concentration, we get additional dollars for the kinds of students that we have. Free and reduced eligibility, English language learners, and foster youth. So we get additional dollars because with the new LCF model, there's a weight to more money for needier kids further from opportunity. And we get additional concentration dollars, and that really is, we get more dollars if we have more of them. If you have over, I think it's 55%, you get additional dollars. And we qualify for that. I think for us, we're about between 77 and 78%. So, where do we spend our unrestricted dollars? We spend it primarily at schools, in the school budgets. The kind of things that are there would be teachers and principals and the front office and books and supplies. School support, those are things that the infrastructure to support the schools, like custodians, nurses, counselors, there's other resources, other types of expenditures that are supporting of schools, and then the infrastructure. And that's things like utilities and payroll and HR and legal, kind of like the back office, if you will. And so how much is in each bucket? You can see about 61% goes directly to schools, and another 25% is in support of schools. So you're talking, what, 86% either in school budgets or for schools to really support them. And then you have the infrastructure, as well as our, last but not least, but required, our state loan payment. So when the district went into receivership, had a $100 million loan from the state, and we having to pay that back, and that's hits us about $6 million a year. That $6 million could go into one of these other categories, and primarily one of these two. But we're working on that. So, how do we spend our money of our unrestricted dollars? So we have these categories. And you can see a big portion is for certificated salaries and benefits. Then we have classified salaries and benefits. The special ed piece is the unrestricted portion of special ed costs that have to be funded. So special ed is a program that's under-resourced. And so in all school districts, you have to take some of your unrestricted dollars and apply it to help support the special ed program. Then we have contracted services, books and supplies, buildings and grounds, our utilities, and then again, there's that debt piece again. So that's kind of how we spend our dollars. And you can see a big percentage of it is in salaries and benefits. I think that's a wrap. So that's a macro picture of our budget, so you get a sense that we're $500 million all in. We got a lot of it unrestricted. A lot of it goes to schools, but again, like somebody said earlier, it's just not a lot, it's just not enough. We do get more money because of the kids we serve, but even that, there's a lot of needs, so there needs to be more resources. And so one of the things that happens that we want our state leaders and legislative people to figure out is, why are we 48? Get us somewhere in the middle. Make some progress, because we got to do the best we can with what we have. And so when you don't have that much, you got to really think about what I'm going to pay for, right? You know, is it the lights? Or is it the cable? Or is it gas to get in the car? Or is it the rent? I mean, that's kind of, you know, that's kind of where we are with this, right? And so we need your input to kind of help us figure out, you know, where to spend this money so we can get the biggest bang for our buck. Because at the end of the day, all the money needs to be going towards the success of our students. And so we got to be really smart and prudent about how we invest those dollars to get the biggest return for our investment so we can actually show the progress that we need to show for our kids.